Hey everyone, welcome to Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. It is Wednesday, August 21st. The kids are back to school. I have a lot more time on my hands, so look out. Today, I want to talk to you about housing and a big housing project near the Santa Barbara Mission. But first, please hit subscribe on YouTube and also visit santabarbaratalks.com and consider a contribution to support these podcasts. I do these podcasts all on my own to provide a different kind of content to this community. It's analysis, it's commentary, it's opinion, it's sort of riffing on the news of the day. And I really love it. I enjoy it. We have such a great media market in this town, so many good institutions trying to do great work to serve the community. And I'm trying to do something that no one else is doing through these podcasts to provide that service so people can see things and get content in a different way than your traditional news story. So please consider a contribution. Hit subscribe on YouTube. Okay, let's go. I wrote a story today about a big housing project near the Santa Barbara Mission. It is essentially across the street from the Mission, like across a driveway from the Mission. And it's a big project. It's something like 255 apartments, and it's multi-storied and 436 parking spaces. The city of Santa Barbara received this application July 22nd from a Los Angeles developer. These are also the developers who proposed that big project on Grand Avenue, which is now tied up in litigation in court. This project by the Mission, it's 505 East Los Olivos Street. It's a builder's remedy project. So this means that it was submitted at a time when the city of Santa Barbara did not have its housing element certified. And so developers were able to do that, which means they're able to bypass and skirt some of the local planning laws. This was an obscure law created by the state to incentivize cities to approve more housing. We are in a housing crisis, of course, and so Sacramento is trying to compel cities and counties to approve more housing development. The problem with builder's remedy is that it's sort of a one size fits all. It's a cookie cutter approach to development, and so there are definitely massive needs for new housing, but it doesn't take into consideration specific sites. So here's a proposal for multi-stories right next to the Mission in an area that is already super busy. I almost died, and I'm not exaggerating, dashing across the street trying to find this place. First of all, it's proposed for this former retreat, this former monastery site, and we all kind of like are familiar with the space, but we don't really know what's there because it's behind a stone wall, a wrought iron gate, trees, a hedge. We just sort of take this space for granted because it's just part of our urban environment. And behind those hedges, behind that, there are buildings. It's a former monastery site, and these developers purchased it and they want to build up. It would be taller than the Mission Bells. It is a big project. And so they want to build housing on there. And of course, we know we need housing. There's a big affordable housing crisis, but Santa Barbara sensibilities, I think people who are even the most ardent supporters of more housing would have concerns with this location. The spots for housing, as everyone has talked about, are near transit, near urban corridors, State Street, Paseo Nuevo, La Cumbre Plaza, all of these areas where there are services. To put it on the edge of the Riviera, I mean, this community is going to come unglued, and there's already lots of pushback from members of the Riviera Association, as I had talked about in my story. So this is a big deal. How are they going to get this done? How are they going to approve this? These are Los Angeles developers trying to exercise builder's remedy. City of Santa Barbara reviewed their application, deemed it incomplete, and now they're giving it back to the developer and saying, hey, we need more specifics, sizes of your units, what type of affordability, open space, what is your traffic circulation, how tall is this building going to be, what is the circulation going to be, all these details that were not included, at least from the city of Santa Barbara's perspective, in their application. So that part is happening. This could be, okay, the line in the sand. This could be the housing project that forces a statewide conversation about builder's remedy, because this project, if it gets built, this is exactly the unintended consequences of what this law was intending. The law was intending more housing, which is a good thing. But to do it in the spot, I mean, the mission to many people is a cherished, institution. It's a church, it's a place of so many gatherings. And regardless of what you think of missions, it is a local community historic location diagonal from the Rose Garden, which everyone uses. I mean, it's a park, it's a picnic, it's a place for recreation, it's a rose garden. I mean, it is a community gathering spot. And there's so much traffic, as I indicated, as I'm trying to like dash across the street to get pictures to find the location. There's no address. It doesn't say 505 East Los Olivos. There's cars, there's bikes, there's families, there's people walking, there's all kind, and it's there's blind curves. It's a really difficult situation. So good luck, right? We're going to see what the city of Santa Barbara is going to do. They've sent them their application back. There's 90 days. And I just have to sort of feel like this is going to be a changing spot, a defining moment for this whole issue around builder's remedy and housing, because it's kind of unfathomable. Did I say that right? Unfathomable to imagine this project in that spot. I'm sure it's possible, maybe there's little the city can do legally with builder's remedy, but to imagine that spot being built with housing is gonna cause a lot of unrest. So this is gonna be incredible to watch it play out. And I've got more stories along the way, more interviews, more conversations. But check out my story at newshawk.com. Kristen Sneddon weighs in on it. Shelley Bookspan is talking. She's a member of the Riviera Association. She's talking as an individual. I did get the developer, the COO, to talk to me yesterday, which was great. Very nice guy. He gave me a nice quote. And we'll see where it goes. But wow, this is a huge project. Speaking of big housing projects, also yesterday at the Santa Barbara City Council meeting, the city took up the future of La Cumbre Plaza. Councilmember Eric Friedman and Councilmember Mike Jordan wrote a 2-page memo to get the council to have a discussion about planning staff working with the Taylor family, Matthew and Jim Taylor, father and son team, on a term sheet for what the city wants out of La Cumbre Plaza and ultimately what the Taylor family wants, which is a development agreement. Okay. I'm not going to go into the whole history, but I need to just explain a little bit of context. The Taylor family wants to build something like 642 units on this site. Macy's is going to be gone. I think the lease is up in 2027 or 2028. So this development would demolish Macy's and it would wrap around all of those parking spaces, the little bowl, the underneath thing where they sell the Christmas trees and the pumpkins every year, that would go away. And then it would wrap around the parking lot in front of Chipotle and C's Candy and all those places. Okay. And so this is what it would be. There's another property owner that owns the mall. There's another property owner that owns the former Sears building. There's like 3 different property owners there. And so I should say there's another interest that has a long-term lease on the mall. They don't own the mall, but they have a long-term lease. So what's going on here? Friedman and Jordan, they were handcuffed by a very controversial decision by the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, the board of directors, which tanked funding $1.1 million for a specific plan to fund a holistic approach to that whole mall, working with all of those developers. This is one of the biggest political travesties that I have seen, because a technical advisory committee had recommended that La Cumbre Plaza receive $1.1 million in funding for the city for a specific plan to holistically work to create the most amount of housing in the most efficient way, taking into consideration Hope School District, circulation, park space, affordability. This was the plan. They were going to do a specific plan. And then the board of directors of SBCAG, led by at the time Chair Doss Williams, tanked the whole proposal. They had these conversations beforehand, and then they went into the South Coast Subcommittee meeting and pretended like, it was a real discussion, but they had already kind of worked it out beforehand. And it was kind of gross, quite honestly, because you had the city planners who were just absolutely ambushed, and this funding was taken away, even though it was recommended by an advisory committee who studied all of these projects and funding. And it was the rug was pulled out from underneath them during this meeting, and they lost the funding, and there was no specific plan. And it was sort of a fake meeting, but I reported on it because I knew what was happening behind the scenes. And the city of Santa Barbara lost out on all of this funding. So that leaves Friedman and Jordan coming to the city staff saying, will you please encourage these people to have a voluntary conversation where we create term sheet for what we want out of it and what they want. The city wants more affordability. They want more consideration of open space, of parkland, of Hope School District, of all the impacts in that area. And then the Taylors want a development agreement. So something that says, okay, if we do all of this, we want some kind of assurance at the end of the process that we're going to get approval. So much of what developers complain about is, hey, we don't have any certainty in the process. We come to you, we submit a project, it goes through review, there are new board members, it comes back, they change their mind, they give inconsistent direction, and it gets caught up in this loop. And then, this planning staff has their own issues that they have with that. So they want some certainty. And so that's part of this discussion. So now it's this voluntary discussion that hopefully the Taylors are going to agree to. I mean, they are agreeable as long as they get a development agreement. And the city of Santa Barbara is going to say, please, 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 little Sabrina Carpenter there, saying, hey, do this for us. And hopefully we can make the most out of this after, mysterious political behind the scenes pat you on the back reasons why the specific plan was tanked a couple of years ago. So that's where this is at. I just got to say, and I'm going to show you a little clip here. Council member Kristen Sneddon was pretty incredible on this topic because she went through the whole process, held everybody accountable through the specific plan, torpedo, as she called it, conversation, then through just, recently how the public relations team for the Taylor and the La Cumbre Plaza project, we're only sending notifications to people who clicked a box saying they supported the project on like the status of things, not those who were indifferent or opposed to it. And Sneddon brings all that up to provide some transparency and some oversight. So let's just watch that clip because she's also going to talk about affordability.
Given that there may be substantial concessions that are potentially asked for, and again, I don't know what they might be, there has to be clear and commensurate community benefit to make this process worthwhile. We don't see the term sheet yet of what's being asked for, so I don't know that we have the full ability to say what we're willing to trade for. Every major developer right now is looking to see how precedent-setting this will be. What will they be asking for? And what will they be able to get out of a deal? I'm hearing that there are other developments that are on pause, waiting to see how good of a deal you can get from the city. And the development team meeting with us today has other potential projects. So is this precedent setting what we determine is commensurate community benefit? I do think we need a development agreement. I'm very happy these conversations are happening with at least some of the people you feel comfortable talking to. If the developers are looking for certainty or especially height concessions, which I agree, height is maybe not so much of an issue at this site, we have to be really careful in our definitions. So they're high stakes. I think we have to define the line and hold the line. And to one of our public speakers saying our kind of changeable definition of what affordable housing means, I think is a big issue. So I'm going to underscore, there are two bold, highlighted underscore asks as far as I'm concerned of the main importance. And the first one is that the higher percentage of affordable needs to be of truly affordable housing, and that is defined as up to 120% AMI maximum, and with more in the 80 to 120 than there is the below 80%. I think just starting numbers, 10% at below 80% AMI and 15% at 80 to 120 AMI. I think in that we could also consider for sale units. I don't know if, I mean, since we're talking about development agreement, maybe that's something that could be worked in there as well. The second ask, and I'm going to reference some data for why I'm making these specific asks, but the second ask is that there's a contribution of at least $10 to $12 million to either the Affordable Housing Trust Fund or a donation of land.
I mean, it's amazing to be able to see a council member articulate a subject with this amount of interest and passion. I mean, this is exactly what we want from our elected officials. We don't always need to disagree, or we don't always need to agree with them, but the fact that they're trying, that they're caring, that they're trying to be involved, they're trying to move the chess pieces around and play an active role is impressive. And I've been covering City Hall for a long time. San Jose, Santa Barbara, more than 20 years. Newsflash, most of the stuff that you see on a Tuesday afternoon is not real. It's fake. It's performative, okay? They've already sort of figured out, based off of who they've talked to privately, kind of the direction they're going to go. Almost never does somebody who comes to talk during public comment affect what they're going to do. In fact, some of the public commenters go there because they've been asked by the elected officials to talk. Very rarely does the staff persuade. Sometimes it happens, but so much of what's there on a Tuesday is performative. But what we saw from Councilmember Sneddon was so authentic. It was so real. She was holding everyone accountable and then talking about affordability. This whole thing that we're doing, all this housing, why are we doing it? Because we need more housing, and the housing we need is for the working class community. These are people who run the community, the spine of the community, the housekeepers, the gardeners, the servers, the people working in the kitchens, the people who make this tourist industry what it is, and just working class families working multiple jobs, raising kids, whether they have kids or not. They're struggling to make it work in this community. We're building housing for locals, for people who grew up in this community. So many of the housing activists want to build more housing. Well, so many of the locals have been driven out because of the high cost of housing, and new people have come in, and those new people are talking about how we need more housing. We need housing for the next generation. It's so important to maintain that historical continuity. If you're building housing for 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, by the time the stuff gets built, $10,000 a month, we don't have the jobs in this community to pay that amount in order for people to live here. So who is being served by this housing? It's the tech workers. It's the highest paid people in the community. And the last thing we need is people renting apartments, leasing apartments, buying homes as second homes so that they can visit for a few months in the year, or worse, use them as vacation rentals, whether official, where the city gets taxpayer dollars, or unofficial, informally, where they skirt the tax laws and do that. We don't need that. We need housing for everyday people, the people who commute from Lompoc, Santa Maria, Ventura, Oxnard, that whole thing. We need people working, living where they work as much as possible, because I don't know if you've been on the 101 lately, it is not fun. Of course, a lot of that is all the massive construction. I guess every government entity has decided to, do their projects all at once, but we reduce traffic congestion. It's better for quality of life. It's also better for the stages of your life. If you're somebody who's 25, you're maybe not be thinking about these things, but if you have kids, you have family, like quality time matters, and you don't want to spend it, in the parking lot we call 101. You want to spend it at home or at the park or at the youth sports fields or at, ballet or dance class or any number of the things that kids do, that youth does. That's where you want to be. You don't want to be driving on the road. And so we need that kind of housing to serve these individuals. But sadly, when we allow developers to build, they're going to build what they can make the most money on. I mean, just like every one of you who goes to work, you try to get as much money as you can to put in your pocket. This is their work. This is what they do. And so we need housing, though, not for market rate. We need housing for below market rate. And that's the big puzzle. That's the big challenge, because it's that intersection between government and the private market. And then if you put too many demands on the developers, they're going to say, well, we're not going to build housing for you. And then we all lose, right? But if they'll say that we'll all lose. So we need them. We need to work together in order for them to continue to want to build housing, but we also need to force them to say, hey, you're going to build housing in our town. You better make sure that it's for working class people, not just the richest of the rich. And, Santa Barbara's always been expensive. It's always going to be expensive. That doesn't mean that we just forget about affordability. And, the city's doing a lot to try to make that happen. And a lot of the activists are too, but it's a conversation that you need to have with full trust, and you need to be able to trust that everyone's intentions are good, because when you have people say, no, do this, do this, do this, just it all falls apart. And so that's what the conversation is. And that's what Eric Friedman and that's what Mike Jordan are trying to do with the term sheet on Cumbre Plaza. And it's great to see Sneddon bringing out all of these issues. Some members of the council, they don't talk on housing during this issue, during this conversation. It's such a shame. Like, if you don't have anything to say on housing, why are you there? So props to council member Sneddon, Jordan, and Friedman for bringing this issue to the front. And they're going to work it out. They're going to work on a term sheet, and then it's going to come back to the city council for more discussion later. Okay. So that's all I have for today. I just wanted to talk to you about this massive mission project and also what happened yesterday at the council. Thank you so much for your time. Please hit subscribe on YouTube, and also visit SantaBarbaraTalks.com. Consider a contribution. Hope you enjoy these podcasts. I love doing them, even if you kind of hate watch just to see what I have to say. I appreciate you watching, and I always appreciate all the tons of really positive feedback I get from people who enjoy what I do. So thank you. Appreciate your time. Have a great day.